Exactly what we're doing. I don't know how you can be in a bad mood after you hear that song. That song is such a lekker. We continue our conversation, of course, on the Social Impact Show, and somebody who agrees with me on the power of that song. I've never seen anybody argue. I would imagine if a couple had an argument and that song started playing, they would immediately stop and just start dancing with each other. Am I right, Nevelia?
I think you're spot on, and I'm going to put that on my playlist because there are some arguments that happen, and now I know. Call me Al.
I love it. Call me Al. That's the voice of Nevelia Moloi, who's the head of content at Heartlines, a social behavior change organization. Now, Heartlines is relaunching its acclaimed 8 films, 8 values campaign, a series that originally aired, get this, in 2006. I can't believe it goes back that far, and profoundly impacted audiences nationwide. Each film delves into a specific value: acceptance, perseverance, forgiveness, honesty, responsibility, compassion, self-control, and second chances, using powerful storytelling to inspire social change. Thank you for joining us. I cannot believe 2006, this groundbreaking creative tool was launched that changed the game for so many people. Is it really that long ago? I was going to say but let me talk. Am I really that old?
No, I feel really that old with you. And yes, it has been 19 years since those films played on SABC.
Our producer looked at me like, what's Heartlines? But he's from a completely different generation.
I love it.
It was groundbreaking at the time. It was game-changing, and I think it was brave.
I agree with you on all fronts. One of our impact reports, an independent report, actually said that our biggest achievement was that we gained a national dialogue on values, and that had never been done before. It had never been done before that a certain amount of films were played on all 3 of the national broadcaster channels over a period of weeks. It had never happened before that people were having a conversation on trains, on buses, at work, in their sports clubs, in churches, and in correctional services. So, yeah, it was brave and it was groundbreaking.
Yeah. Do you think now, even now, I don't know what happened. Why do you think now is the time to kind of relaunch that? And is it an indictment that something from 19 years ago that dealt with issues is still relevant in 2025? Have we not progressed?
Sam, so I was thinking about this morning, that it's actually bittersweet that values that were purported 19 years ago still have a resonance today.
Yeah.
Bittersweet in the sense of there's a timelessness about it, but the bitter is, have we not moved on since then? Have we not evolved? Have those same lessons not actually been...
Have we de-evolved?
Exactly. But then on the flip side, there's a saying, Ingoma imnandi iapindwa. Like, call me out. It's a good song must be repeated.
Yeah.
And so these films, we've been told, are like a good song that must be repeated. People had such a strong resonance with the values and reactions, both personally and then at a corporate level, like in teams, in the families. We heard a lot of stories about people felt like their families were impacted. And then to be able to be said that we had a national conversation on something that we've never had before, I think that was really groundbreaking. But then those same values from then are still relevant right now. Values such as honesty. I remember in around about that time, in say 2004 to 2005, when we started seeing the embers of greed and corruption and criminality coming in. There was the sense of, we can't let this happen. We've just built this beautiful democracy. We can't allow this to happen. And I remember reading an article called We've Lost Our Moral Compass. And so enter Heartlines, enter movements like the Moral Regeneration Movement, which gets us
I haven't heard
thinking,
that in a long time.
I know, but...
And it's so funny you talk about that. I saw a speech yesterday of Alan Busak. And which kind of exemplified that entire era.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So the Arch was there, the Alan Busaks of the world were there, speaking about this return, right? So we have these we have this wave of a return to values conversation, and in a way we think, oh, that must then be the end. We've got it. We have arrived. 2 weeks ago, I read a headline: South Africa has completely lost our way. Will we ever find it back?
Sure.
And it takes me back right there. And so I'm sitting thinking, how are we asking the same question that we were asking 19 years ago? How are we feeling the same burden of criminality, corruption, the impact of greed, of violence? How are we still sitting here now? And so if we're asking the same question, then surely we need to have the same conversation, because maybe we didn't get it the first time, or maybe it's like times tables. Just because you did your times table once doesn't mean you're going to remember it for the rest of your life. But there's this repetition that's coming. Things happen along the way that make us forget about what we believed when we were younger. And so I do think there's this moment again to have these conversations.
But do you think, Nevelia, that at the time when we had those conversations, we were very clear on what the rules were? We were very clear on what the common interests were, what the common output was.
Yes.
And in 2025, it's a bit opaque. It's not as clear as it used to be. And so therefore, and I think, I don't want to talk about nostalgia as if it's lost its value. I think by relaunching these programs and talking about it, there are some inalienable truths. Like honesty is honesty. Doesn't matter where you come from.
Absolutely.
Perseverance kind of looks the same.
Yeah.
Integrity looks the same.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
So to your earlier question, I think what was easier with the elephant in the room, apartheid, and some young people don't even know what that is, which is great.
Yeah.
But when we had an apartheid, we had a common enemy, we had a united enemy, we all knew the direction in which we were working towards. Yeah, sure, there were those who were holding on for dear life, but by and large we knew this system is not going to work. This is killing our families, it's killing our economy, it's killing us as a people. What is the enemy right now? The enemy for you looks very different, perhaps, to me. Maybe for me, it's more like a bread and butter issue because there's so many people in my family who don't have jobs. Maybe for you, it's maybe what's closer to home is issues around GBV because of people around you that have been impacted by GBV. So how do you unite around one thing when it's so hard to even say what that one thing is? But as you say, there are some universal truths, and I think these 8 films really speak to those universal truths. Honesty is honesty. Like, we can't move forward. I can't move forward in my life, or even us collectively, without acknowledging where am I now and how did I get here. I can't move forward without having compassion for the ones who were dealt the hardest blows, whatever that looks like, or still being dealt blows. You can't move forward without having the humility to forgive someone who has wronged you or hurt you. And so those are some of the universal values that came through in our films. Like, forgiveness is forgiveness 20 years later. Compassion is compassion. Acceptance.
I agree with you.
Second chances. Yeah.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And I think we are very quick to think that these things are now interchangeable, and they're not.
They're not.
And, and then the principles of still, I always say to my children, you're still going to have to put in one leg into your pants, at a time. You're still going to have to put on one shoe. There are unfortunate realities that will not change, right?
They won't.
But 19 years ago, we didn't have social media.
We didn't.
In the same way.
We didn't.
I think MySpace was a thing back then. And
Mixit was a thing. Mixit wasn't even a thing. Mixit wasn't even a thing.
Was even later. Yeah. We lived in a very different world. It was so much easier to get the congregation around the TV set.
Yes.
There was a common community around that device, the radio.
Yes.
Now it's scattered.
Completely.
How does Heartlines think of engaging audiences now in a digital world where we currently live in the era of me, I, my feelings are facts?
Yes.
So how do you now make this relevant? Do you touch the content or do you leave it, but you kind of do the packaging around it a little bit different?
Such a good question, Sam, in the sense that I think you can either kick against the new wave, or you can actually embrace what's good about it and meet it where it's at. And so we've previously had these films available on DVD. The films were also
I've not
I
heard
know
of
who even knows what DVDs are. So people
He
used to
knows
buy
what DVD is.
people used to buy DVDs.
And you know, when you hear us refer to he, we're talking about Mpilo, our producer. My producer is 22 years old, so
Love
a lot
it.
of the stuff that we think are valuable.
Some of my best friends are 22.
Yeah, Mpilo just looks at me sometimes like, was that a thing? Yeah, it was a thing.
So DVDs were a thing back then, and people used to buy these
We used
films
to carry
on
sleeves
DVD.
with DVDs.
Yes,
in
we
it.
did.
The
Yes.
DJs
We
used
had
to
a DVD collection. It was an
Yes.
actual thing.
And we used to fight each other if you scratched our DVDs.
And if you didn't return it, I
It
would
was
come
a
to your
thing.
house and
It
come and
was
get
a
that
thing.
DVD back from you.
It was a thing. It was a
So
thing.
we've moved on since you, because
Yeah.
now people don't even have DVD players.
No, they don't.
And so how are they accessing content? That is one of the decisions why we've decided to make the films available digitally.
Yeah.
People also want it when they want it. Back then, we were all willing to sit on a Sunday evening and watch
Yeah.
TV on a Sunday evening.
And a remote was a physical person. A physical person. And sometimes, if you were siblings, you would fight amongst each other.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Until
anyway.
the dad came along, and then you knew who's the boss of the remote, right?
Yeah.
So now I want to watch a film about second chances when I want to watch a film on second chances.
okay.
So we're releasing
It's
these
on demand
films.
now.
It's on demand. We're releasing it. I just keep
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, you just keep on talking. It doesn't affect us on air at all.
I love it. We release these films every Friday, starting the 21st of March at 7 p.m.
Okay.
So before, I mean, if you knew that you had to watch a show at 7 p.m., you had to set a reminder, you were making sure you got through traffic to get home by 7
Yeah.
p.m., etc. Now we're releasing it at 7 p.m., but you probably want to watch it next Tuesday evening at 9 p.m.
Or an hour later even.
Exactly. And then you are well within your rights to do that. And now you don't have to go and try and buy a second-hand DVD player to play the films on DVD.
It's true. The original fanfare and community around Heartlines was very strong.
It was.
And it had a very specific community. I don't know, with all the advancement of technology, what does that community look like now? Is it still as strong? Because there's just so much messaging now, and
Yes.
there's so many experts now, and so many people can talk about honesty and integrity.
Yes.
So what is the community like for this now? Or are you waiting with zeal to see who this new audience could be?
Yes. I think we are waiting with zeal to see who this new audience could be. Although we do know for a fact who the audience is that wants this. The emails that we regularly get asking, when can we get the films? Where will the films be available? We want to have these conversations again. So we know that it's our generation who is there. There's a nostalgia attached to it, that want to see it. But I think we would love to see who's a new and emerging market that might be interested in it. We have a lot of young people who are interested in vintage and retro. And
Yeah.
so in a way, I mean, these films are not being retouched or remastered. We are putting them in their little square shape as they were.
What an experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as soon as you click play at our website, you will see immediately there'll be tells. This is not a 2022 film. No, it is a film from way back. And so there's a nostalgia, there's a placing, but there's also a let me reflect how things looked back then. As a young person, one of the films, The Bet, is set in a school. What did it mean to be a young person back then, facing issues of sexuality, identity, who am
All
I,
the issues they're
purpose?
facing now.
Exactly. How did it look then? What did they do? What were some of the questions they had to ask themselves? What does it look like to be a young person who has a father who's a migrant laborer, which we still have in South Africa today? What does it mean to be a man today who wants to provide for your family but feels financially unable to do so?
Even worse today.
Even worse today. And what were the choices that those characters had to make to move them forward? Same questions, same conversations, but we are keen to see who else would resonate with these conversations now.
Deeply, deeply interesting. Very interesting. And almost begs that at some point, I don't know if Heartlines will ever do it, but it would be interesting to take the generation of now and 19 years ago, put them in a room together after they've watched it and debate that.
Sam, that's exactly what we're hoping to do. That is
would
exactly
be such
what we're
a great...
Would you facilitate a conversation like that for us?
I would love to do it. It reminds me of Jubilee and the work that they do.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be a great series to do, to kind of juxtapose positions, but using the central piece of cinema storytelling. Final question. What are the other things, Heartlines? Because I'm sorry to say this, but over the last couple of years, I think with everything happening, you might have lost a bit of public-faced engagement. So are you using this to kind of reignite the Heartlines machine?
Interesting. Not entirely, because we've actually been... So what's been happening since then is we had another series since then called Hopeful, which was all about making a difference practically in your community.
Oh.
We have then had a film called Nothing for Mahala, which underpinned a campaign.
I think I've heard of
You've
that.
heard of Nothing with Tapelo Mokoena?
Yeah, I have.
And that was speaking around money values and how does what I believe about money impact what I believe about the world and how I show up in the world and what I do with my money. Then we had another project which was underpinned by a film called Beyond the River. That project's called What's Your Story?
Yeah.
In a time when
so you've been busy.
No, we've been busy. It's just that, busy people don't need to brag about it. And so the truth is that you can go to our social media pages. We are active on social media, but honestly, our resonance is on the ground with communities, with people who are saying, I need this in my sector. I need this in my small group, in my youth group, in my Christian community group. Correctional services we've still been actively working with all these years. They are actually the one that single-handedly have used the 8 films repeatedly year after year after year, because there's one film, and maybe just to speak a bit to impact, one of the letters that has meant the most to us, or the scores of letters, are letters from inmates who have watched the films. And I remember one of them very clearly. This gentleman said, after my sentence, I felt like my life was over. I watched these films and I felt like I had a chance to start again.
Wow.
Goosebump stuff.
Because that gives you the goosies.
Yeah. And so those are the kinds of conversations that have been happening. What's Your Story was a project that says we make a lot of assumptions about each other. I mean, you put me in the auntie group when I walked into the room, or I don't know, and we make assumptions about each other. Oh, we can't possibly like the same music. What do you know about the struggles that I have? But it starts with a question. It starts by, Sam, Mpilo, what's your story? Who are you really?
Yeah.
We can't move forward together until we actually get to know each other at a deeper level than just the surface.
Yeah.
So that's another project we've had.
So much to cover. 15 seconds. The first, just tell us quickly, where can we get the 8 films and what your social handles are?
You can get the 8 films at heartlines.org.za. They release every Friday, starting 21st of March at 7 p.m. and we release a film a week. And you can follow us on social media at HeartlinesZA.
That's amazing. I love it. I'm going to be there. I'm going to watch it. I encourage our audience who love this stuff, go to their platform. That's Nevelia Moloi, who's the head of content at Heartlines. And I'm sure you can remember these impactful movies. They were really, really brilliant for their time. But we should invite you back. We should have more conversations.
I would love that. That intergenerational dialogue we're hosting, Mpilo's going to be there.
He definitely will be. And he's a very smart young man. So we are going to have some deep insights, have that conversation. But please go to their platform. Check it out. The content is still relevant. And what a beautiful trip in terms of nostalgia.
919 FM.